Guten Chodesh, Shavol Aksivach Simetayra, we should be zeicher to do our avoid and el that we need in order to enter Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur Sukkos. Should be Zman Simchaseinu by the time we go through this process. Baruch Shalom should give us the kaiches and the seichel so we know what to do, each of us on an individual level, and then be mishtatif with Klal Yisrael. So we should have Taka Shana Toivu Masukah Cheni Ratzon. This week's Parshat Shoftim, I'm going to talk about Rav Kook today. It was Rav Kook's yard site yesterday, Gimel Elul. It was nifta on Gimel Elul 1935, before the establishment of the state. We'll talk about an idea that Rav Kook presented about a general inyan in the parsha. We don't have a parsha like this in the Torah where all four segments of Klal Yisrael are discussed. What are the four segments? The psukim here about Kohanim, Leviim, the Melech, and the Navi. Everything is addressed in this week's parsha. So, in Perek Yud Zayin, Pasuk Tes, if there's a shaila that no other beis din can answer, so you have to go up to the Sanhedrin HaGadol in Yerushalayim. It says, Uvasa el ha-kohanim ha-leviyim. So Kohanim and Leviyim, they're teachers of halacha. We see that some other place in the Torah. V'vel ha-shofet asher yeh bayom hahem. And the judge who is in that day. V'darashta v'gilucha eis dvar mishpat. And then the next pasuk says, Shamat lasis kol asher yebucha, and the famous pasuk Yud Aleph, Lo sasa min hadov asher yagid lecha yom nusmol. You shall not veer from what the Sanhedrin HaGadol says, either to the right or to the left, which everybody loves to quote. The Bavli, Afilu oymel lecha yamin shu smol val smol shel yamin. You listen. Even if they say to you, right is left and left is right, you listen to them. Okay? Whatever, that's not what we're going to talk about today, but whatever the Chazal means, it doesn't mean what everybody quotes it to mean. It doesn't mean that I'm a righty, Baruch Hashem, right here, and this is my left hand, and Mamela, I put on tefillin on my left hand. If the Sanhedrin HaGadol says, no, this is your right hand and this is your left hand, put on your tefillin here. So there's no mitzvah in the Torah that I should put on my tefillin on the wrong hand because they told me right is left and left is right. Okay, we understand that. Okay? And that's an extreme example. But we understand that it cannot be literally, if they tell you left is right and right is left, you listen to them. And for this purpose, we know that it has to be limited because part of Parshas Vayikra is dedicated to a whole Masechta. Masechta Horiot. It's Masechta in Shas, not a large Masechta. It ends on Daf Yudalid. But it's a Masechta about what you do when the Sanhedrin HaGadol makes a mistake. We have, in Parshas Vayikra, there are special karbonos that the Sanhedrin brings when they issue a psak that's not correct. And there are all kinds of technical rules to it. It has to be a psak that affects a chiyuv koris and that has a chiyuv shoygig. There's a question that's brought to the Sanhedrin HaGadol about whether this and this and this such a thing is a violation of nida. The Sanhedrin says, no, it's not a violation of nida. And then there's a question about how many Jews actually have relations with their wife under that ruling. And it turns out that they made a mistake. The woman was a nida. So what do you do now? What do you do now? The Sanhedrin brings a carbon, not each individual. Why? For their mistake. Okay? But they don't make a mistake. The right is left and left is right. The answer is, yeah, they do make mistakes. Right is left and left is right. It's not literal. It's an example of the extent to which we listen to Chachamim. In fact, there's a lashon in Masechta Haryos Daf Beis Amud Beis. We won't go into the sugya there, but there's a lashon. It says Ta'ah b'mitzvah l'shmoi divrei chachamim. It's possible that a person can make a mistake because there's a mitzvah to listen to chachamim, b'shamata v'asis this week's parsha, and you made a mistake. You listened to them when you weren't supposed to listen to them. The Gemara talks about a beis on the beis and havius ta'ah b'mitzvah l'shmoi divrei chachamim. Okay, so all these kind of concepts have been erased. They're not Torah concepts anymore. They're Apikursis concepts today, because we have people today that are considered to be infallible. Lahavdil, we got this idea from the Pope, the concept of infallibility. The Pope, the Catholic Church, nobody listens to the Pope anymore, but the Pope thinks people listen to him, Yamach Shemoy. And there's a concept that the Catholics pass down, infallibility. Heyois, that the Pope on earth is the incarnation in some form of Yoshka, and you always have to listen to the Jewish boy, right? So therefore you have to always listen to the Pope because he's an incarnation of a Jew. They don't understand the whole cheshbon here, that you always listen to a Jew. But that's where this Nebuch infallibility concept came. Saif kol saf, we're all human beings. Greater people have greater understanding. It doesn't mean that they can't make a mistake. And if they can't make a mistake, it means they're greater than Moshe Rabbeinu. Moshe Rabbeinu, the Gemara says in Kam Makoimus, Kivan shebolach lal kaas, bolach tos. Gemara says that in several places about Moshe Rabbeinu. Okay? Alright. So here we have the parsha of Kohanim, Leviim, Shoftim. Then next, Perek Yud Zayin, Pasuk Yud Daled. Saim Tasem Alecha Melech. One of the 613 mitzvahs that you should designate for yourself a king. We have all the rules of who may be a king, who can't be a king, what are the powers of the king. Sugis in Sanhedrin, where the power of the king begins, where the power of the king ends. Of course, we have the Shaila, and all the Mefarshim asked the Shaila, when the Jewish people came to Shmuel and said, we'd like a king, boy, they got a Mesilas Yeshar Musa Shmuel from Shmuel. Oy, you want a king? This is a rebellion against God. What do you mean? It's a mitzvah in the Torah. Okay, so all Mefarshim talk about it. But we have a mitzvah here, Soim Tosim Alecha Melech. And this is one of the three mitzvahs, the Gemara in Sanhedrin says, that triggered only when the Jews entered Eretz Yisrael. The Gemara in Sanhedrin says, Sholish mitzvahs nistavu lahem yisrael b'chnisasim l'aretz. The Jews got three mitzvahs were triggered only when they entered Eretz Yisrael. One of them was Limnois lahem melech, you have to have a king. V'achad, and the next one was Lahach Rizari Shal Amalek, you have to wipe out Amalek. V'achas Livnais Binyan Beis HaBchir, and one was to build a Beis HaMikdash. Well, the three mitzvahs triggered, and they have to be done in that order, the Gemara says. You need a king to lead the battle against Amalek, and once Amalek is eradicated, you can build a Beis HaMikdash. So, of course, we have the historical question. Shaul was told to wipe out Amalek. He didn't do it. He lost his kingship for it. David became king. It doesn't appear that Amalek was wiped out. And Shlomo built the Beis HaMikdash. And years later, you have Haman, who's still from Amalek around. So how did they build the Beis HaMikdash if all of Amalek wasn't destroyed? Okay, historical question as well. So we have now Kohen, Levi, Shofet, Melech. Then the parsha continues. Perek Yudches, Pasuk Tesvav, the parsha of a Navi. Navi mikir b'cha me'achecha kamoini yakum l'cha Hashem lekech elav tishmon. I'm going to give you, after Moshe dies, there'll be other Nevi'im that will stand in his place. They'll not be as great as Moshe. There'll never be another like Moshe, but the Rebbeinu Shalom guarantees Klal Yisrael. If you look at the pasuk before and the pasuk after, Jews will not need kishuf, and Jews will not need sorcerers, and Jews will not need stargazers like the Goyim use, because I'm going to give you a real Navi. So we have in the parasha Kohen, Levi, Shofet, Melech, Navi. Let's move off from the parsha for a few minutes. At the women's share this week, we're talking about Pasuk in Yeshaya, and we talked about a wedding, a hypothetical wedding. Hypothetically, each of us have a wedding tonight. We're marrying off a child. It's a busy day. We know what that day looks like, the day you're marrying off a child. Now, there's a lot of things you can do the day before, and leaving it for the last day is a self-imposed emergency. There are things that you can't do. So I gave the woman their examples. I said, like, if your husband says to you, why do you have to get the makeup lady here an hour before the wedding, and now we're going to be late for the pictures? So she'll say, what do you want me to do? Do the makeup the night before? Then it leaks all over my face. Of course it has to be done an hour before the wedding. The things that have to be done. If the woman says to the man, where are you going? I'm going to the mikveh before the chuppah. Well, you couldn't do it yesterday? No, I couldn't do it yesterday. So we understand there are things that we do the day of the chuppah. There are things that we can do before the chuppah. You wake up in the morning, you're marrying off a child tonight, and you say to your wife, or your wife says to you, not to be discriminatory, I saw today in the paper a picture of a couch that we've been looking for years. It's on sale in Netanya. It's mamish, the color, the style, everything we're looking for. It's 500 shekel off today. A new store's opening. D-City. Everybody read about D-City? Right? D-City, I don't know about D-City. D-City is a new mall that opened there, it's sold 2 days ago. In, where? Modi'in. It's the largest mall now in Israel. It was built by a from investment company called Cass Investments, and the kiddie park next to there's a kiddie park, so you can come there and shop and let your kids go on rides. It's called Cass, the Cass whatever, and there's all kinds of shops there, and they're so proud of it because it looks exactly like a big mall in Las Vegas. That's how Las Vegas. Good. Okay. Hopefully nobody tries to bring San Francisco here. So I say, I saw the couch in D-City. So you say to your wife says to you, Bis Mashika, it's 500 shekel, okay. We have a wedding tonight. We don't have time to go to D-City, look at the couch, back and forth. We have a wedding tonight. No. Come on. All right, no, we'll squeeze it in. Michigan, we're not doing this. We have a wedding tonight. In that context, let's read the Rambam that we read almost every year to prepare ourselves for Elul and Rosh Hashanah, Kippur. So let's take a look at the Rambam Hilchos Tshuva, Perek Gimel Lachadav. We'll look at it every year, and every year it has a new meaning. And this year it has its own meaning. The Torah says, and in the 7th month, which is Tishrei, Nisan, Iyar, Sivan, Tammuz of Elul, Tishrei, in the 7th month, on the first day, you will blow a trua. Why? Doesn't say. So we have all kinds of cheshbonos. The first day of Tishrei is the day that Adam Rishon was created, and that's the day he ate from the Eitz Hadas Tov Ra, and that's the day he did tshuva. And since it's such a wonderful day to do tshuva, therefore Rosh Hashanah is a day tshuva. And what better day to blow shofar than a day of tshuva? Very nice. So why not tell me to shake a lulav on Rosh Hashanah? What does shofar have to do with tshuva? Yom HaShiyah, we talk about this almost every year. The Rishonim ask in Rosh Hashanah. The truth of the matter is, the way we paskin in Tekufas Hashanah, Adam Rishon was created on Rosh Chodesh Nisan, not Rosh Chodesh Tishrei. Ad Kedei Kach that the Ran Rosh Hashanah says that there's a completely different reason for Rosh Hashanah. There's nothing to do with Adam Harishon. Okay, but this is what we got in elementary school. This is what we continue to live with, and we say Hayom Haras Olam. So on the first day of the 7th month, Adam Rishon is created. He did tshuva. We need to blow shofar. So what does the shofar do for me? Rambam. Even though blowing shofar on Rosh Hashanah is an absolute gzeres hakos, like a paraduma. I have no reason what the shofar has to do with the first day of the 7th month. Remez yesh boy. There is a remez that the Rebbeinu Shalom is giving us when we blow shofar and we hear shofar. Now we already started blowing shofar Rosh Chodesh Elul. That's our minig. So what the Rambam says here about Kiyah shofar is relevant also to our blowing shofar every day. So what we're going to read now in the Rambam means that there's the Kloisenberger Rebbe, Zechronet Tzaddik Levracha, is an unbelievable tzaddik. We're going to have to talk about his sitkis. He lost a wife and I think 10 or 11 children in the Holocaust. Came to America, reestablished Kloisenberg, and they came here and they Rabbi Feldman, Zechronet Tzaddik Levracha, not Yibor L'chaim Rabbi Feldman. Rabbi Feldman Lubavitcher, who was a Rav in a shul from the older Rabbonim in Baltimore, and I was there. He once told over a story that someone told him. So he said over the story as was told to him that there was a Yid who was in the concentration camp with the Kloisenberger Rebbe. And the Nazis, Yimach Shemam V'Zichram, always kept a calendar of Jewish holidays. And Jewish holidays they made sure to work you and torture you more than any other day. So on Yom Kippur, Ma'aseh Hoya Kachoya, 1 year, they give this group an assignment. They give them wheelbarrows filled with stones. And they have to go up a hill, unload the stones at the top of the hill, reload the stones on the top of the hill, come back down, unload, reload, up and down. This is Yom Kippur. They're going up and down and up and down. And this year it's right behind the Kloisenberger Rebbe. The Yid has a wheelbarrow, the Kloisenberger Rebbe has a wheelbarrow. And this Yid hears the Kloisenberger Rebbe crying, and he's saying to him, Tachas asher lo yav, next week's Parshas Kisavoy, Tachas asher lo yavaltos Hashem lekecha b'simcha u'etuv leibov. This has happened to me because I wasn't an Oved Hashem b'simcha. So as he's doing this Yom Kippur, he's been makabel the Yisum. He says, Tachas asher lo yavaltos Hashem lekecha b'simcha u'etuv leibov. He's a Mordechai tzaddik. So when he came to America, there are a lot of funny stories about things he said in America, because it was a completely different culture. At one of the first brisim he was at was on a weekday, and this is already going back probably in the 50s. So kinog ad hayoim, the bris, and then people pack up sandwiches and they leave. So he spoke during the bris, and he said, and he had a very raspy voice. He said he had a very raspy voice. He said, Ich weiß as Mila is doiche Shabbos, aber in America is Mila nicht doiche Chol. I know that the halacha is that a bris Mila is doiche Shabbos, but I see in America it's not doiche weekday. He had a lot of these short sentences about what he saw in America. So, I forgot the story I was going to tell you. Come back to me. So the Rambam says, even though Tkiyah Shofar and Rosh Hashanah is Exeris HaKosiv, it's a Parah Aduma. We don't know why. Remez Yesh Boy. The Torah, the Rebbeinu Shalom, is giving a hint to us as to what we're supposed to be doing in. This is that's what he said. He said, Mekim Tzedavna in America, Malek the Tefillin Shal Yad. Imahot azoy viel machshavas as me vergesst ze mahot gedavend medaf herabnemen de shel yad und medaf anfangen davnen und medaf legen de tefillin shel rosh. In America, people have that tefillin shel yad on. They think about so many different things. They can't remember if they finish davening, they should take off the shel yad, or if they should start davening and put on the shel rosh. So The reason I'm telling you this story is there's a minhag, it's everybody. I'm gamani b'chal. I try in Elul not to do it. The chazan is, it depends. There are different girsois. Ein kelekenu, tefillin off, or aleinu, tefillin off. L'davar Hashem oyevish, zichet tefillin off. I mean, how many times? Tekiah shayfa, for sure I don't have to have my tefillin on. So, if we understand the chshivas of that tekiah shayfa, so maybe we'll keep the tefillin on, and it's not just a minhag. Okay, if we can understand what that tekiah shayfa is every morning as a preparation for Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, maybe we can take it more seriously. So the Rambam says, Kloima, this is the remez that God's talking to us. You people are asleep. You're 11 months into this year, and you still are doing the same things you've been doing for your whole life. And therefore, what is that? It's an alarm clock. It is really time to wake up. It is late. And if you don't get up now, you're going to miss the appointment. What's the appointment? On Rosh Hashanah. What's the worst thing you can do if you're involved in a court case? Hire a lawyer the day before you have to go to court. Okay? The only lawyer you can get a day before you have to go to court is a shlamazel, who has nothing to do tomorrow because he has no other cases. Or he probably doesn't really care. As long as he just gets his fee, he'll show up and he'll do whatever he needs to do. But you don't want to hire a lawyer and get ready for a court case the day before the court case. If you understand that Rosh Hashanah is Yom Hadin, and we say it's a Yom Hadin, and we take Yom Hadin serious, so you understand we want to get ready beforehand, not at the last minute. So the Rebbeinu Shalom says, Ur Yeshena Mishinaschem. That's the Tekiah Shoif on Rosh Hashanah, and we, Baruch Hashem, have a minhag to do the alarm clock earlier, 30 days early. Investigate all your deeds, and do tshuva and remember your Creator. And here are the words that should be embedded in your mind. This is the tshuva. Those people who forget the truth of life, and they spend their life havle zman, in the most ridiculous wastes of time. And they spend all their years in shtuyot. The things are not going to help you and save you. It's time to take a look at what you need to do to really get through the Yom Hadin. There's a tachlis to life. There's goals. There are places we need to get to. There's a chasana tonight. You want to call that chasana Gan Eden. You want to call that chasana Olam Haba. But there's a place to go. There's a place we need to get to. No. I'll get there. Let's take out 2 hours in the meantime to look at this this on sale couch. Wait, Michigan, there's wedding tonight. I don't have time to go to D-City to look at a couch now. It doesn't mean that we don't have tiyulim, we have to take vacation, we're human beings, but a person has to have cheshbon. And I'm sorry for using this example over and over. I used it at the women's share because the women appreciate it. A person's doing shiputzim in his house or whatever he's doing. How much time do you spend looking at toilet tile? What tiles am I putting in the bathroom? You want to have a nice bathroom? Of course you have to have a nice bathroom. The Gemara in Bracha says that a person needs kelim yafim dirino. A person needs a nice place to live. If he has a messed up place, it affects him emotionally. He's unhappy. If he's unhappy, he can't be an Oved Hashem. A person needs a nice place. Now, nice has different criteria. You have to have normal criteria. Person, how much time do you have again to spend on selecting your bathroom tile? Wiffel Zeit. No, I can't buy the tiling in Yerushalayim or in Beit Shemesh because I hear there's a store in Tel Aviv. I have to go to Tel Aviv. I'm going to fight the traffic there, fight traffic back, and see if they have a nicer tile in Tel Aviv. It's the bathroom. Okay. The kitchen could be more chomer. I don't know. Grace. But how much? How much time? I think it's Rabbi Yisrael Salanta said that on the Yom Hadin, Lasid Lovai, the Rebbeinu Shalom has a complete calculation. If a person lives 70 years, I'd maybe ask him, live 70 years, how many hours are there in 70 years? Nagid, it's 280,000 hours of life. So the Rebbeinu Shalom says, you live 280,000 hours. Now that 280,000 hours, you spend 72 hours on kitchen tile and bathroom tile. Hey, Rebbeinu Shalom, 72 hours? Of my life I spent on bathroom and kitchen. Yeah. I have the cheshbon. I can show you 72 hours of your life you spent on kitchen tile and bathroom tile. No, sorry, Bar Shalom. Give me a cheshbon here. What's going on here? I did it for Shalom Bayis. My wife wanted to go to Tel Aviv. Okay, so I've kuach with the Bar Shalom and Shalom Bayis. Whatever the case is, a person has to have a cheshbon on his time. And this is Yisoid HaYisoidus of Tshuva. The Rambam says, Eilu HaShoychnes HaEmes B'Havlei Asman. We forget the tachlis in life. We forget the future, that there's a future to life that's beyond this life here today. And we end up spending so much time focusing on these 70 years, and we give up that time for the 70 years and enjoying 70 years, which is okay, but how much time? And we end up losing out on the eternal time, the investment in the eternal time. And so this is an alarm clock, the Tekiah Shofar. Every day when we hear Tekiah Shofar, we should be thinking about this Rambam. Eilu HaShoychnes HaEmes B'Havlei Asman. There's an alarm clock going off right now. What am I going to do today? What can I do more constructive with my time today than I haven't done in the past? Is it I can say a little more Tehillim for some people? Is it that I can make another Seder and learn another Mishnah for 10 minutes? Is it that I can do Chesed with some? Whatever it is, if there's something constructive I can use my time for today that I haven't done in the past. Then you're converting your Havlei Zman into Binyan Zman. And this begins the process of tshuva. So the Rambam's idea here is there's a present and there's a future. Don't sell off your future because of the present. Now let's take a look. Let's go back to the Parshat and take a look at. First, we're going to take a look quickly so we can understand the Rav Kook. Thank you. Please remember this so you can learn it, you can look it up, keep it in mind. Perek Gimel in Yoel. Yoel is one of the Trei Asar. There's a book of the Nevi'im called Trei Asar. Yeshaya has his own book, Yirmiyah has his own book, Yecheskel has his own book. Then there's Trei Asar, 12, what they call the minor Nevi'im. They're not minor. They're as important as anyone else. It's just that their books are a little smaller, and so they got incorporated into one large book called Trei Asar. Yonah is in there. Hosea, almost. One of the 12 Nevi'im is Yoel. Perek Gimel is talking about take a look at the Rashi at the bottom. V'hoya achreichein la'asid lavo. In the future, when Mashiach comes. You see, Perek Gimel is only 5 psukim. Okay. V'hoya achreichein, and it will be after this. It means after all the history, and we're ready, as Rashi says, for the future, for Mashiach. Eshboich es ruchi al kol basar. I will let flow and pour on all spirits a new breath of understanding. V'nibu b'neichem u'v'noisechem. Your sons and your daughters will become Nevi'im. Zikneichem chaloimus yachaloimim. Your elders will have dreams. Bachureichem, your young men, chezyoinas yiru. They'll see visions. So we're going to see the Malbim soon. We'll see 3 things here. Boys and girls will become Nevi'im. Older people will only have dreams. And young men will have visions. Now this is like an apechu. What would be the high? We got 3 levels here. We have Nevuah, a vision, and a dream. What's the lowest level here that God can reveal himself in? A dream. The next level, a vision. The highest level, a nevuah. Who's getting the nevuah? The young kids. Who's getting the lowest level? The old folks. They're going to have dreams. And who's getting the intermediate level? The young men. But the young children are going to be the Nevi'im. Okay, that's what the pasuk says. Fine. Gimel, v'nasati moisim b'shamayim v'aretz. Everybody remembers this from the Haggadah Shel Pesach. Dam v'eish v'simrois oshen. That's a piece of Haggadah. It's already getting close to that moitzi matzah, and everybody just remembers to do 3 drips of blood on dam v'eish simrois oshen, and then we're going to do dam tzvadei kinam or. We say it quickly, dam v'eish simrois oshen. What does it mean? What is it? Okay. Here's where the pasuk is, and if you can take a look at what that means. Hashemesh shehafech lechoshech v'hayarech ledam lifnei bo yom Hashem hagadol v'hanoira v'hoya kol asher yikra b'shem Hashem, and it will be on that day that anything that is called in the name of God, godly people, yimolet, they will run away from these catastrophes. Ki b'har Tzion u'Yerushalayim tia pleita, because the only place that a remnant will be able to survive that day will be on Har Tzion and in Yerushalayim. So you better be ready for that day to run away from the Dam, the Eish, and the Simrois Oshan, because they're coming. And those who are godly people, that the name of God is upon them, they will understand to run away. And the survivors, the Pleita, will be in Har Tzion and Yerushalayim. Kasher Oma Hashem, this is what Hashem says, Uvasridim Asher Hashem Koreh, and to the leftover, the remnants to which Hashem calls. Okay? Perek Gimel and Yah. Take a look at the next page in the Malbim. Left column at the top, about a quarter of the way down, bold. Benibu b'neichem uv'noisechem ki yesh sholish madregas. There are 3 levels in this pasuk. Ha-nevuah ha-gemura. The pasuk talks about absolute nevuah. Ha-chazbeis, ha-chazon shulamata me'anevuah shir machzis b'hakitz ayesh yochel hasher ha'kerchtem yoinot. Then there's something called a vision, which is a process where HaKadosh Baruch Hu sends information and understandings to a person's dimyan. He can begin to imagine things, but it's not a nevuah, it's lower level. Gimel ha-chalom ha-tzodek shulamata me'ashefa. And then there's the dream. Okay, and dreams part are true, part are nonsense. So the highest level is nevuah, the lowest level is a dream, and the middle level is a vision. Skipping a few lines, Uvazeh Yoima, and here Yoel tells us b'nevuah, Shahabanim v'habanot hatzirim, shehem noldu b'dor HaMashiach, the young children, the boys and the girls that will be born in the generation of Mashiach, Hamuchan l'ruach Eloki, this will be a special generation. They'll be ready for a spiritual uplifting by God. It's a new, fresh generation. Hem yinabu nevuos gemuris. God will give them the ability to be full nevi'im. V'hazkenim, who are the old folks here? Shehem noldu b'dor koydem rochak midar Mashiach. These are the older people who were born a long time before the Mashiach, the Dor of Mashiach. Well, yushpaleim rakach haloimes hatzaitim. What are they going to have? They have some dreams, and through those dreams they'll have understanding. V'habachurim sheim noldu gam kein lefnei bar Mashiach, and the young adults who were born also before Mashiach, v'leidasim haya korev l'smanoi yosim and hamizkenim, but they were born closer to the time of Mashiach than the older people. Heim chazyonis yiru, they have visions. Shehu shefa mamutza, it's the middle level. Bein hanavuah v'hachaloi. I don't know where to start. It's a nevuah of Yoel. I don't think the Malbim is just giving shot here. The pasuk says what it says. The young boys and the girls will become Nevi'im in that time. The young men will have vision, and the Zkanim, who were born before Mashiach, the best they can get level to is they'll be able to have dreams. So who in this door of Mashiach will have the greatest, most in-depth understanding? The young people. Who will have the least understanding? The older people. And who will have the intermediate level understanding? The young men. And what does all this have to do with? Something's going to happen in the door of Mashiach where new understanding is going to come down. So if your mind is fresh and open, young boys and young girls, your mind will be able to get nevuah. If you're from that Zekanim who were born long before Mashiach came, and you're already locked in to your narrative, so right, you'll get a little deeper understanding in some dreams. And if you're a young man who was born before Mashiach, but not so long ago as those old people, you'll get some clarity through a vision. The amazing thing about young people. Rav Kook talks about this, these psukim, in the sense of there's a door. He was Niftan Gimel Elul, 1935. And he had a belief that he wrote so often about in the young people of a new generation. They don't always look the way the older generation looked. They don't always sound the way the older generation sounded. But they have new capacity that the older generation will not have. And so we have here a situation where the closer you are in birth to the door of Mashiach, the deeper your clarity is going to be about what's going on in front of you. The more distant you are from the door of Mashiach, a going b'Torah. We understand that the Gemara says a lot of times, Ach Shadori. The Gemara says, generations don't get better as time moves on. The Gemara says there's a bitmiyah, Ach Shadori. You're talking about the newer generation is bigger than the old. It can't be. The generations are going down. We all know the famous Gemara in Shabbos, Daf Kuf Yud Beis and Beis, in Rishonim Kamalachim, Anu Kibnei Adam, in Rishonim Kibnei Adam, Anu Kachamoyim. If we think about the earlier generations as angels, we're human. If we think about the earlier generations as human, then we're mules. Yeah. So we understand that we're going down in terms of Chochmas HaTorah. Chochmah. But there's a revelation here by Yoel that tells us that on the level of Nevuah, the clarity that comes. Now what does a Navi talk about? The Navi talks about the future. The Navi talks about what's going to be in the future. The Navi's talking about the chasna of tonight. Right? Some people are chachomim, they say the sale is today. Right now there's a sale. We'll be ready tonight. Don't worry about tonight. Today there's a sale. And we'll squeeze it in. And it's a chachma. This is exactly the couch we've been looking for so many years. And it's 500 shekel less. We'll shtup it in. It could be the photographer won't get in all the pictures. We'll take some pictures after the wedding. But it's a one-time opportunity right now. It's chachma. It's what we wanted. And it's 500 shekel cheaper. And the Navi's saying, no. There's a wedding tonight in the future. What does the Navi talk about? He talks about the future. The Navi is pushing you and telling you don't waste now and sacrifice now if you're going to lose your future. So Rav Kook says, take a look at this briefly. It's addressing this week's Parsha. This is from Rav Veer, Rav Gil de Veer, who has a sefer every week on the Parsha. He takes a a piece of Rav Kook from all of Rav Kook's Svarim, and he applies it to that week's Parsha. So this comes from Rav Gil de Veer, and Rav de Veer is explaining that famous Gemara in Brachos, Daf Yud Amud Aleph. Chizkiyahu is on his deathbed. Who is this Chizkiyahu HaMelech? He's a direct descendant of David. And who is this Chizkiyahu HaMelech? The Gemara in Sanhedrin says the only person ever identified by Chazal, the Gemara in Sanhedrin says Chizkiyahu was going to be Mashiach. And when Sanhedrin surrounded the city of Yerushalayim, that was going to be Melchemes Gog uMagog. Because Melchemes Gog uMagog is on the city of Yerushalayim. Sanhedrin had his whole army around Yerushalayim ready to attack. And Chizkiyahu is the tzaddik in the city. Everything was set, the Gemara says, and Chizkiyahu had the neshama of Mashiach. The Rebbeinu Shalom, however, said no, because Chizkiyahu didn't say Shiva. He should have said Shiva to praise Hashem for certain miracles that happened to him. He didn't say Shiva, and he lost the opportunity to be Mashiach. We're talking about this unbelievable tzaddik. And he's on his deathbed. Who is he? Melech. Yeshaya is the Navi. So we're going to have here a Navi Melech confrontation. They need to have a chat about how to proceed. There are a lot of things going on in Yerushalayim at the time. Chizkiyahu says, I'm not going to see Yeshaya. If he wants to come and talk to me, he comes to me. Because a Navi comes to a Melech doesn't come to a Navi. Yeshaya says, I'm not going to him. If he wants to talk, he comes to me, because a Melech comes to a Navi. Ma'asa HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the Gemara says, what HaKadosh Baruch Hu do? Mi ka'achacham u'mi yodeh pesher dava, the Gemara says. There's nobody like God that knows how to make a pshara. The Gemara says that Chizkiyahu was not a lamos. Chizkiyahu got sick, he was on his deathbed. No, he's on his deathbed. Yeshaya comes. No, his deathbed. What am I going to say? He should come from his deathbed to see me. So he goes to be Mavaka Cholim. But it's such a big Cholim that we should never know from such a big Cholim. Yeshaya comes to Chizkiyahu and says, you should know Mois Thomas, die you shall die. Die, you shall die. What am I going to die twice? Yeah, you're going to die twice. You're going to die in Olam Hazeh and you have no Chelik in Olam Haba. This is the man who was about to be Mashiach, and now he has no Olam Haba. So King Chizkiyahu says, what did I do? So Navi Yeshaya says, you didn't get married, you weren't a kind of mitzvah pruvu. Says King Chizkiyahu, I have Ruach HaKodesh, and if I get married, I'm going to bring very evil children to the world. And he was eventually correct, because his two boys are again at Tzatzkalach. One of them is called Menashe. And Menashe, by the way, we talked about this. Menashe ends up killing his grandfather Yeshaya. Yeshaya was killed by his grandson. So Yeshaya tells Chizkiyahu, you're going to die because you didn't get married. Chizkiyahu says, I don't want to get married because I'll bring evil children to the world. And Yeshaya says to him, it's not your business, you have to get married, it's a mitzvah in the Torah. Chizkiyahu says, okay, if you think that that's what we should do, maybe give me your single daughter and we'll get married. And the story continues from there, whatever it is. And he ends up eventually marrying Yeshaya's daughter, and they have the two Tzatzkalach. One of the Tzatzkalach, Menashe, ends up killing Zayda Yeshaya. So Rav Kook wants to know what's exactly going on here. This is very strange. The person who's such a tzaddik, King Chizkiyahu, says, I don't go see a Navi. Me? I'm a Melech. And Yeshaya, the Navi Yeshaya says, me? I don't go see a Melech. I'm a Navi. What's exactly going on here? Are we dealing with two egomaniacs? What are we dealing with here? So Rav Kook says, remember, we're dealing with this in the Parsha, Melech and Navi. Rav Kook says that we understand that in Halacha, the Torah told us in this week's Parsha at the beginning that you go to the Kohanim, Leviim, and the Shoftim. Right? There are Kohanim, Leviim teachers. There's a Sanhedrin HaGadol that teaches you the Halacha. That's where the Chachma is, the Chachmas HaTorah. Now, you have to know how to run a country. So today we have, I'm not going to get into the sheet, today we have a sheet that Das Torah tells you how to run a country as well. Das Torah tells you who to vote for. We're not going to get into that whole complicated sugya. But we have clearly in the Parsha that halacha is Kohanim, Leviim, and the Shoftim Sanhedrin HaGadol. And then we have a Melech and a Navi. Rav Kook says, what's the proper place of a melech and a navi? Well, what is HaKadosh Baruch Hu giving us two things for in this week's parasha? So Rav Kook says, I don't have time to read the Rav Kook, but Rav Kook says that a melech is concerned for the immediate well-being of his people. Parenthetically, Rav Kook didn't say this, but we can see this today, and not in the finest way, because of the conflict. I'll give you a very extreme example. Today in the news, there was a startling story. No, but it sounds like it's true. The headline of the story is that there's a secret agreement between hospital administrators and Bennett, that hospital administrators will get additional funding from the government to hire more doctors and nurses for Loyalenu, the COVID patients that are going to be coming. But the hospital administrators have agreed to keep an absolute silence and not report what's going on in the hospitals to the media. It's a headline in news. Now, if you ask Ben, and so far, usually when a story like this appears, within 15 minutes there's a denial. There's no denial. And who did they interview to get the secret? The hospital administrators, who said that they agreed to keep all this secret. But none of the hospital administrators are named, but 4 of them, I think, were interviewed and said, yeah, this is terrible, this is what they're demanding from us. So Bennett will say, yeah, this is the best thing for the people. People can't take the truth. It's going to be terrible. We don't want to scare people. This is not a mamish doing this for the toiv of the am. Truth of the matter is, he's doing it like all politicians. He's doing it for the toiv himself. Why? Because he keeps on promising there won't be a lockdown. And if the numbers get so high, it will need a lockdown. And this way, people won't know that the numbers are so high. They'll say, oh, Baruch Hashem, there's no lockdown. But the melech who runs a country, first and foremost, is supposed to be making decisions for the welfare of the country now. He's not a navi. He's making decisions now. They try to make decisions. What should we do today for the future? But they have no idea of what the future holds. They're trying to, what the melech knows is the situation today. He makes decisions for the best of his nation today, with the hope that it'll be for the best in the future. There's only one person who can tell him what the future holds, and that's the Navi. On the other hand, the Navi is not entrusted with making decisions about today. That's not his function. So Cook says this is the partnership that HaKadosh Baruch Hu made between a melech and a Navi. And he split the separation of power, so to speak. There's a melech, and he's going to have to understand he's limited. He can make decisions today, but he has no idea what the ramifications are for the future. For that, you need a Navi. The Navi has to understand that there's a separation of powers, and yeah, he can take a glimpse into the future, but the Chachma to understand what the right thing is to do today, that's invested in the Melech. So Rav Kook says this is the machlekes between Chizkiyahu and Yeshaya. There's no machlekes going on here about ego. There's a machlekes going on here about what impression we want to leave with Klal Yisrael. If Chizkiyahu says, I go to the Navi, then what are people going to get the impression? That the most important part of this power system is looking at the future. But you can't really look at the future unless you're making decisions today. And since HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants us to get together to make certain decisions, the Navi should come to me. And Yeshaya says, what's the impression that's going to be left if I go to the Melech? Right? That today is the most important thing. And you don't have to understand what are the ramifications of the future. They're like, America will pass $3.5 trillion for this and $1.5 trillion for this. Yeah, but what does this mean for the future? No. We want to give out a lot of lollipops today. Whatever happens in the future, we don't care about. Yeah, but really, there's a problem here. No. So there's always this tension between what we're going to think about today and how much we're going to think about the ramifications to the future. Whether we're going to go to the sale of that couch today and risk being late for the wedding tonight, or no, we can't go for the couch today because of the wedding tonight. And there's this tension about today versus the future. Rav Kook says, what did HaKadosh Baruch Hu do? HaKadosh Baruch Hu made Chizkiyahu sick, so that Yeshayahu would have to go to Chizkiyahu. So at the end of the day, what happened here? Yeshayahu went to Chizkiyahu. So what does it look like? The Melech won. But why did Yeshayahu go to Chizkiyahu? Because Chizkiyahu was about to die. The Rebbeinu Shalom didn't make Yeshayahu sick. The Rebbeinu Shalom made Chizkiyahu sick. So therefore, if you look only at the outside of the story, what do you see? Melech wins. But if you look deeper at the story, who wins? Navi wins. So it depends how you want to live your life, Rav Kook says. If you want to live your life superficially, look at the superficial story, the Melech won. So you live for today. If you want to look a little deeper in the story, the Lamaisa, the Melech got sick. And the Navi came to visit him as a Bikur Cholim. So at the end of the day, while there's a separation of powers, we have to respect the Nevi'im. We have to have a look at what the future holds based upon what we're doing. This holds true for the tension between going to buy that couch on wedding day or not. And this holds true for the Yoel Nevuah that we saw, that the young children are going to have this Ruach Nevuah. The older people, they're going to have tremendous chokhmah. But that chokhmah is about a chokhmah that's a narrative of today. And there's a future that has to give way to that chokhmah of today, to a new generation that will have the power of Nevuah to see things through a different perspective. And this is what Rav Kook was trying to get through the minds of people, that things are changing. There's a new generation coming. There's a new understanding that's needed about Eretz Yisrael and Medinas Yisrael, although he wasn't zeicha to see Medinas Yisrael. But there's something happening that's going to change history forever. We need to know how to deal with it. The old Torah is the new Torah. It's the same Torah. But how you apply it to the new situation is going to be a challenge. To say that the situation hasn't changed because I can ignore the founding of the State of Israel is absolute insanity. It doesn't exist. The State of Israel doesn't exist. I can make believe it's not here. Okay. Does anybody do that in halacha? You have a lung in front of you, and the lung has a hole in it. You say, let's make believe the lung's not here. It's kosher. Right? But what are you talking about? The hole is here. Is it a sircha or not a sircha? Well, let's make believe it's not here. We can't make believe that something didn't happen. It happened. And now the question is, how are you going to deal with that challenge? What's the Torah going to say to that challenge? And you can have all kinds of shittas about how to deal with that challenge. But to say that something hasn't changed and we don't have to deal with that is denial that God's running the world quite literally. God has made tremendous changes here. COVID doesn't exist. It's a fluke. It doesn't exist. It didn't happen. God sent the regular yearly flu, but we now call it COVID. And next year we'll call it spaghetti. But it's all the flu. It's a denial that God's doing something in the world. So in Chodesh Elul, we should have a greater recognition of the Rebbeinu Shalom running the world. And through that, we should spend a little more time from our time and less time on the Hevel Azman. And through that, we begin the process of tshuva, of thinking towards the future of Rosh Hashanah, and not so much about the daily enjoyment and things that we need to do, but we have to curtail some of them for the proper tshuva. Everybody have a wonderful Shabbos, guys.